I'd like to welcome all of you to the 7th Annual Battle of Franklin Commemorative Illumination hosted by the City of Franklin and the Battlefield Preservation Trust. The City wishes to thank the Battle of Franklin Trust, the Heritage Foundation of Franklin and Williamson County, Save the Franklin Battlefield Incorporated, Chad Gray, the Bravo Creative Arts Center Choral Group, and dozens of luminaries set up and cleanup volunteers for assistance and participation with the illumination this year. The City of Franklin appreciates your dedication to be here tonight for this commemorative event. At this hour, 148 years ago, two armies engaged in a monumental struggle that helped decide the fate of our country. Thousands of casualties resulted from the battle, many of whom fell victim on these very grounds. The luminaries lit here tonight commemorate those brave soldiers who gave their lives for their respective causes. None of us can truly imagine what it was like in Franklin during the battle and those few days afterwards. Thousands of wounded soldiers were treated in makeshift hospitals throughout the town. And over the course of this week, red replica flags have been displayed at properties that served as hospitals after the battle. These flags serve as a reminder of just how much the civilian community was impacted by the Battle of Franklin and its aftermath. Men from both sides struggled and died here in those final months of the Civil War. Let us remember those sacrifices tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. It is once again the anniversary of the Battle of Franklin. And as Mayor Moore mentioned briefly, it was battles such as this that helped shape our nation. And I've spent much of the day sort of following the paths of these two armies, from Columbia and through Spring Hill and here to Franklin. And every now and then we get fortunate to have a day like this where the conditions are almost exactly as they were 148 years ago. It was a beautiful day. Weather had been rough for a few days, those last days of November. Cold, rain. Then the weather moderated and cleared off. The 29th and 30th of November were beautiful days. There's a lot of action on the 29th that would lead to the fateful Battle of Franklin, as these two great armies, the Gallant Army of Tennessee and elements of the Army of the Cumberland and Army of the Ohio, old antagonists, old foes. The war had been dragging on for 3.5 years by the time this battle would be fought. This was the last great campaign of the war. 60,000 men would move through Middle Tennessee in these last days of November. They would come into close contact at Spring Hill late in the afternoon, November 29th. The Confederate Army came very close to cutting off the U.S. Army and preventing its retreat northward toward Franklin and to its ultimate goal of Nashville. But the U.S. Army escaped that night and arrived here in Franklin, dawn Wednesday, November 30th, 1864. The little town just north of here, of about 750 people, had no idea what was about to happen to it and to them. The family that lived here, Fountain Branch Carter, his son Moscow, his daughters, could have never foreseen what was about to happen. On such a gorgeous late autumn afternoon, their lives were changed forever. Throughout the day, the U.S. Army was throwing up fortifications, earthworks, breastworks on the south side of Franklin. Their intent was to leave at 6 p.m. They would evacuate and go to Nashville. The Southern Army awoke that morning to find out that the enemy had gotten away. The Confederate commander, John Bell Hood, who had given as much as anyone during the war, led his army of almost 30,000 men north in rapid pursuit. And the gallant Army of Tennessee began to deploy at the base of a ridge of hills south of here in preparation of what was to come. General Hood decided, command can be a lonely place, I should add. General Hood decided that afternoon this was his last chance to destroy the U.S. Army before it got away, before it escaped to Nashville. A Confederate soldier who survived this battle would write in its aftermath, it was better to be defeated in a blaze of glory than die a coward. There is a sentiment in these two armies that afternoon. They understand what's at stake, both sides. They understand that the war has dragged on and on. Nearly 600,000 Americans have already died. Countless civilians in the South have found their lives forever altered, reshaped, destroyed. And at 4 o'clock that afternoon, 20,000 Southern soldiers, facing about 20,000 Federal soldiers, some dug in just a short distance from here, stretching out to the east and the west. But 20,000 Southern soldiers, men from every state in the Old South but Virginia and North Carolina. A lot of men from Mississippi, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, and a lot of Tennesseans. One of the Tennesseans who was just southwest of here was a young man by the name of Todd Carter. Hadn't been home in 3.5 years. Many of you, I am certain, know his story. And I doubt that there was anyone on the battlefield that afternoon who felt the way that Todd Carter did, because he wasn't fighting for home in some sort of abstract sense. He was fighting for his literal home. From where he was, he could see his home was inside enemy lines. And so at 4 o'clock, these 20,000 soldiers, who had marched 500 miles in 5 weeks just to get here, stepped forward and began to advance in one of the greatest spectacles the Civil War ever saw. You know, the truth is, by late 1864, the romance was mostly gone. It was replaced with just pure cold gallantry and courage and resolve. The U.S. soldiers who watched the Confederate advance that afternoon never forgot what they saw. Sometimes the best judge of character are those who you oppose. Not so much your friends or your family, but sometimes those who respect you even if they don't agree with you. And the U.S. soldiers would write for decades about that spectacle. About watching 20,000 Southern soldiers stretched across a front that was 2 miles wide. It was a human tidal wave. And then, as Confederate General George Gordon would later write, when the battle began, it was as if hell itself exploded in our faces. Another Southern soldier who survived the battle said it was as if the devil had full possession of the earth. The details of this battle are often very graphic. It was a brutal fight. It was humanity at its worst. In 5 short hours, nearly 10,000 American soldiers would be killed, wounded, or captured. And nearly 3/4 of them were Confederate soldiers. Men on both sides who for years had given everything they had fighting for what they believed was right. The sun sets early, obviously, this time of year. By 4:35, it's down, and it gets dark very shortly. We're standing in the epicenter of one of the most violent conflicts of the war. Behind you, a series of lights. Not 10,000 this year, but 2,000. As you walk amongst these luminaries, think of this. There were just slightly more than 2,000 men who died here that afternoon and evening. These luminaries tonight, in my mind, essentially represent those who never got home, those who never recovered from their wounds. Some of these luminaries represent men who were buried at Carnton, who were taken home in the weeks and months following the battle by family, who sometimes traveled hundreds of miles from both north and south. Some of these men are buried in Murfreesboro, a few in Nashville. 10,000 lives changed forever. In the days and weeks that followed the battle, newspapers, north and south, would carry the lists of the casualties. They sometimes covered 4 pages full of names, almost like a telephone book. Name after name after name after name and after name. The armies left Franklin very shortly. The U.S. Army evacuated that night. They left and went to Nashville. The Confederate Army would bury the dead and would pursue the U.S. Army to the gates of Nashville. And the war soon ended. But this little town would suffer for months and years, and I think you could say perhaps for decades. Those who lived here, those who had witnessed this play out in their homes and in their yards, they lived with the memories in ways that even the soldiers did not. For the Carters, of course, what happened here that afternoon would affect them directly, personally. Todd Carter would be mortally wounded, charging the U.S. lines. He was found the next day barely 200 yards from the house, just to the southwest, clinging to life. He'd die in the home in which he was raised, a little less than 2 days after the battle. The McGavicks at Carnton maintained a cemetery where nearly 1,500 men who were killed in this battle were buried. It became a lifelong dedication. And there were soldiers who returned to Franklin in the years later, not to celebrate it, but to commemorate it, as we are. Somber commemoration. They would visit with Moscow Carter. He knew the battlefield as well as any. They could walk the ground. They could look at the bullet-riddled buildings. They could go to Carnton and walk the cemetery. They could relive and sometimes confront the ghosts of the past. 148 years is a long time. It's almost a century and a half. But I tell people all the time, to the best of my abilities, that just because it happened 148 years ago or 149 years or soon 150 years does not make it any less relevant. They were real people. They were us. They were Americans with convictions and beliefs on both sides. Someone asked me on a field trip recently, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? I don't think there were any bad guys. There really weren't. They were just Americans struggling for what they thought was right. And they would shape our country greatly. The men who survived it saw the United States flourish. No one needed to apologize. They just needed to remember. And they would commemorate it in their own ways until the last of them were gone in the 20th century. It is our job. It is our task. And I ask all of you to do this in your daily lives, is to tell people about this incredible story, to understand it, to learn from it, to appreciate how good we really have it, and how people in different eras found themselves sometimes in terrible spots on battlefields and in life, struggling for what they believed was the right course in life. Thank you again for coming. Spend as much time as you'd like. The luminaries will be up for a bit. I would guess perhaps some of you might be here for the candlelight tour, which begins at 6 p.m., the 40th annual Carter House Candlelight Tour. But breathe it in. Walk the grounds. Let the history, just let the history talk to you quietly for a moment. And remember what happened here 148 years ago, right here on these hallowed grounds. Thank you very much.
My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling at the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 sparkling lamps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence in the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. His truth is marching on. His truth is marching on. I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there were not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixieland where I was born in early on one frosty morning. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. I wish I was in Dixie. Hooray, hooray, in Dixieland I'll take my stand to live and die in Dixie away. victory. Hurrah! Hurrah! Oh, reap is ready now to place upon his loyal brow. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny